Next on the news, police got him, the suspect they think could have murdered a beloved bishop. But why did he do it? The latest right now. Lines like they've never seen. A Catholic church struggling to keep up and serve up. New York is hungrier than ever.
It's part of your Catholic identity. It's who you want to be. It's you wanting to serve, take care of one another.
Plus the revival that's gone viral. Thousands praying nonstop for days on end. But organizers say it's time to move on. And history in your hands, a look at the last 50 years in the Diocese of Brooklyn. The Tablet's editor emeritus is now a published author. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now. We begin tonight with a news alert. Constant prayers outside the home of a bishop, now a crime scene and a growing memorial. Bishop David O'Connell, an auxiliary bishop in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, was found dead in his home Saturday, shot in the chest. Those prayers are asking for answers. Who killed the man called the Peacemaker of Los Angeles? Right now, detectives are investigating the shooting as a homicide, and according to the LA Times, they just made an arrest.
To the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end.
Devastated parishioners have been gathering by the crime scene tape all weekend as police investigate the murder of auxiliary Bishop David O'Connell.
It's just heartbreaking to see what happened to him. I'm brokenhearted. I've been crying for the last 2 days knowing that he's no longer here to share all of his inspiration and his prayers and everything with us.
Homicide detectives with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office working to get a clear picture of what happened. The LA Times says police arrested a man who has ties to a woman with access to the bishop's home. There were reportedly no signs of forced entry when deputies found the bishop's body on Saturday afternoon.
The person was found deceased in the room, bleeding, with what we believe is an apparent gunshot wound to his upper torso.
During Sunday Mass, Archbishop Jose Gomez expressed his shock and sadness.
Bishop Day was a man of deep prayer, but a great love for our Blessed Mother. He was a peacemaker with a heart for the poor and the immigrant. He was also a good friend, and I will miss him greatly.
O'Connell, who was originally from Ireland, served the Los Angeles community for 45 years.
I'm very hurt by his passing, because he's one of the most lovable, humble persons I've ever met.
The Archbishop now asking for prayers for the bishop, his family, and for law enforcement as they continue the investigation.
Now I know that he's in the presence of God, praying for all of us, for peace. We need peace.
Bishop O'Connell wasn't only known as a peacemaker, he's also being remembered as a fierce advocate for immigrants. Let's take a look back at his priestly life, nearly half a century in the making. David O'Connell was ordained a priest in 1979. After that, he ministered at several parishes, mainly dealing with gang violence and poverty. But he gained his reputation as an intermediary after the 1992 riots following the acquittal of the officers who beat Rodney King. The future bishop was instrumental in building back trust between officers and communities in southern LA. Bishop O'Connell was named an auxiliary bishop in 2015. That was when working with immigrants really became a top priority for him. He founded and served as chairman of the Interdiocesan Southern California Immigration Task Force, which helped coordinate the church's response to the recent influx of migrants. Remember, this investigation is far from over, but the Tablet and Currents News is on it every step of the way. So stay with us. We will have developing details on thetablet.org. A secret stop. President Joseph Biden finally visited Ukraine Monday morning, declaring 1 year later, Kyiv still stands. The president called out Vladimir Putin, saying, for God's sake, this man cannot remain in power. He also announced a new $500 million aid package and vowed the United States will continue to back Ukraine, quote, as long as it takes. Laura Aguirre has the latest.
Russia's aim was to wipe Ukraine off the map. Putin's war of conquest is failing.
President Joe Biden calling out Russia's Vladimir Putin during a surprise visit to Ukraine Monday. Traveling in near secrecy, President Biden's arrival in Kyiv comes just days before the one-year anniversary of Russia's invasion.
1 year later, Kyiv stands, and Ukraine stands. Democracy stands.
Despite being in an active war zone, the two world leaders talked while walking outside, air raid sirens ringing out. In a visit to St. Michael's Cathedral, the presidents each laid a wreath for Ukraine's fallen soldiers. The entire trip highly symbolic, President Biden wanting to make it clear to his Russian counterpart that the U.S. and Ukraine will not be divided.
He's counting on us not sticking together. He thought he could outlast us. I don't think he's thinking that right now.
The U.S. pledge of support includes further sanctions on Russia and an aid package worth $500 million, but not the F-16 fighter jets that Ukraine has been asking for. The president is hoping to thread the needle between all-out provocation with Russia and committing American support for Ukraine.
We're going to be with you, Mr. President, for as long as it takes.
We'll do it.
Laura Aguirre, Currents News.
Since the war began, it has never been far from the minds of New Yorkers. Ahead of the one-year mark, hundreds gathered at St. Patrick's Cathedral to pray for peace. Hymns and prayers in both Ukrainian and English filled the Fifth Avenue Cathedral Saturday. Cardinal Timothy Dolan and the Ukrainian Catholic Archbishop of Philadelphia, Archbishop Boris Gudziak, led the special prayer service. They were joined by Ukrainian soldiers who were wounded in the war. Archbishop Gudziak, who recently went back to the country, said support is what the country needs most. A Catholic church in Midtown has been a staple through war and natural disasters, but for the first time in almost 100 years, they're facing something they've never seen before, a city with empty stomachs. And now the Diocese of Brooklyn is answering the call to help. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story from St. Francis of Assisi.
The bells toll at 7 a.m. at St. Francis of Assisi Church in Midtown Manhattan. But long before that, people are lining up. St. Francis Breadline has been a constant for the homeless and food insecure in New York City for close to a century. They've served through the Great Depression, wars, natural disasters, and a global pandemic, ever only missing 4 days. But now they're up against something truly unprecedented.
The need has been incredible. We need to make them feel welcome. And we need to listen to them. That doesn't cost anything. And then from there, we'll try to do more.
In less than a year, New York City has taken in more than 45,000 people, migrants from Central and South America, all of whom are in need. Patrick Regan, the executive director of Franciscan Bread for the Poor, says the migrant crisis has forced the nonprofit to expand its ministry to running 2 separate bread lines every day. The breadline is serving more people now than at the height of the pandemic. More food insecurity means more people are needed to help and not just hand out food, but be the face of hope for the newly arrived.
I hope that they feel like when they come to St. Francis of Assisi, they're being helped, and we're trying to expand how we're helping them.
St. Francis Breadline is now partnering with the Diocese of Brooklyn Office of Youth and Young Adult Ministry, asking students and anyone over the age of 13 to volunteer on Saturday mornings. Associate Director Lucia Morales says it's designed to be more than just community service.
We're Catholics. We want this to be part of their identity of looking after one another.
The breadline starts at 7 every morning. Asking teenagers to get up before the sun on a Saturday is a sacrifice. But Lucia says giving of ourselves to others, even when it's hard, is what our faith is about.
We just want to make sure that they're aware of what's happening in their own city. We want our kids to be disciplined. We want them to be smart and hardworking, but we also want them to be loving and do it in Jesus' name.
The Office of Youth and Young Adult Ministry is signing students and young adults up for each Saturday from now until September. The real hope is it extends far beyond that. Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Feel like you might be able to lend a hand? Don't be shy. They could use you. And Lent just might be a great time to volunteer. Anyone 13 or older who wants to help out at St. Francis Breadline on Saturday mornings can contact Lucia Morales by phone at 646-201-8002 or email at lmorales@diobrook.org. Speaking of Lent, the Diocese of Brooklyn is inviting you on a pilgrimage. Get your passport ready. It's a 40-day journey about to take off. The destinations all over Brooklyn and Queens. 40 days and 42 different parishes. It will kick off on Ash Wednesday at the Cathedral Basilica of St. James. That's where you could pick up your diocesan passport and start the journey from there. There are stops every day after that, except for Sundays. Each day, the faithful will follow a map, making stops to corresponding parishes that will offer people different ways to connect with their faith, including Mass, adorations, confessions, rosaries, and much more. To learn more about the pilgrimage and to sign up for updates, just go to dioceseofbrooklyn.org/Lenten pilgrimage. And again, that will all kick off on Ash Wednesday with a Mass celebrated by Brooklyn Bishop Robert Brennan at the Cathedral Basilica of St. James. If you can't make that liturgy in person, it will be broadcasted live on Net TV. Just tune in this Wednesday, February 22nd at noon. Now to a checkup on Jimmy Carter. The 39th president of the United States is still in hospice, surrounded by his family. The 98-year-old former president, the longest to ever live, decided to spend his remaining time at home in Georgia after a series of short hospital stays. In recent years, Carter has survived several health crises, including a skin cancer that spread to his liver and brain. And as we all pray for the former president this week, Jimmy Carter's longtime Baptist church honored him during their Sunday service. The Maranatha Baptist Church thanked Carter for his service with a special rendition of America the Beautiful. The president taught Sunday school at the Georgia church since the 1980s, even after he received his cancer diagnosis. And developing tonight, Turkey and Syria have been hit again by yet another powerful earthquake. That's just 2 weeks after the shocks that killed nearly 45,000 people. According to reports, this magnitude 6.4 quake struck Turkey near the Syrian border Monday night and then was followed by another 5.8 magnitude tremor. The incident has caused some damaged buildings to collapse, but casualties have not yet been reported. There's a lot more news headed your way 2 weeks later, and they're still too afraid to drink the water. The effects of that train derailment lingering in Ohio. Plus, stopping the nonstop revival, why Asbury University is asking worshipers to move on. And see you later, alligator. This big city reptile is moving from Brooklyn to the Bronx. At first glance, this stream may seem safe, but residents aren't so sure. They say these are troubled waters. 2 weeks after the train derailment sent toxic chemicals billowing all over the state, the government says the water is safe to drink now, but would you do it? Residents there are so skeptical, they're even shelling out for their own tests, and those can be $900 a pop. In the meantime, they're treading with caution, still opting for bottled water. Andy Madison has the story.
Just over 2 weeks have passed since a Norfolk Southern train derailed and dumped toxic materials near East Palestine, Ohio. But the aftermath lingers on.
Watch what happens when they disturb the waterbed. Look at these chemicals.
On Sunday, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg sent a letter to Norfolk Southern CEO Alan Shaw demanding accountability, adding that, quote, "The people of East Palestine cannot be forgotten, nor can their pain be simply considered the cost of doing business."
We worked with the Ohio EPA on safe operations and safety for the community.
Norfolk Southern CEO Alan Shaw also says all air and municipal water tests have come back clean, but some people should still drink bottled water.
Private well testing, we need to continue to monitor and test the wells and wait for those test results to come back.
Some residents say they are suffering from ailments like headaches and sore throats since the derailment.
After those symptoms, I also noticed that I have this rash on my arm that was not there before I came here.
Ohio Senator Sharon Brown says he understands why people in the affected areas are skeptical and concerned.
They know that corporate lobbyists have had far too much influence in our government, and they see this as the result. And this kind of thing shouldn't happen.
Andy Madison, Currents News.
Despite what happens, one priest close to the derailment says he has no plans of abandoning his church. Our Lady of Lourdes is only a quarter-mile away from the crash. Their pastor, Father David Misbriner, said he could see and smell the smoke the day of the derailment. Since then, his focus has been the spiritual well-being of his parishioners, who he says are mostly senior citizens on fixed incomes. And while he's taking care of their spiritual needs, the parish itself is tending to their physical needs, becoming a distribution center for food and that much needed bottled water. You can read even more about Father Misbriner and his parish's efforts online at thetablet.org. 11 days of nonstop worshiping now coming to an end. Asbury University, that small Kentucky college that became the scene of a huge Christian revival, is asking visitors to go out and spread the joy elsewhere. Jeremy Toombs tells us the small city of Wilmore became overwhelmed by the crowds.
Over the past 11 days, tens of thousands of people have descended on a town of just 6,000 to experience this spiritual sensation.
We just had some people arrive from Finland, from the Netherlands. We've had them coming from all over the country.
Cars line the streets of Wilmore for blocks and illustrate the widespread interest this revival has attracted. Many of those drivers have ended their long journeys at Clucker's Corner.
I opened the store at 7 a.m. this morning. Didn't even have a 5-minute break.
Owner Bobby Singh says this weekend has brought on his busiest days yet. And while he can't be inside Hughes Auditorium with them, visitors are bringing their love and kindness right into his store.
I haven't met that many nice people, man. People are inside donating to us. Blessing in disguise, man. Came out of nowhere.
They were never expecting these crowds, so it is causing concern among locals when it comes to public safety.
It is overwhelming, and if you just walk down, you'll see cars parked on their house space.
The university says it's working with Wilmore's mayor to address parking and traffic issues, and they note the revival will soon be moving off their campus, but they hope its spirit is carried on elsewhere.
And so it was always God's to begin with, and so I think from here we're just going to let him take it.
That was Jeremy Toombs reporting. It all started as a church service on February 8th, but even after the service ended, the students remained. Thanks to social media, the revival went viral and people from all over the world flocked to Asbury. Still to come on Currents News, alligator alert. Where this reptile was found might surprise you. Plus, he covered church news for half a century. Ed Wilkinson tells us about his new book and why Catholic journalism is so important when we come back. Take a look at this guy, pulled from a lake not in Florida, but Prospect Park. Thankfully, we are now saying later gator. The 4-foot-long reptile was removed Sunday morning by the Parks Department. But how did the animal get there? We aren't sure, and he was pretty confused himself. The gator was in poor condition and possibly in shock due to the recent cold weather. Someone spotted it and snapped into action, calling the police. Now the alligator is recuperating at the Bronx Zoo. Wow. Now to another sighting, but this a welcome one. You may have spotted him at your church. For 50 years, Ed Wilkinson has been writing and capturing your faith in the tablet newspaper, and now he's taking all that amazing imagery and putting it into a book. Ed recently joined me on Currents News to talk about his new book, Chasing Church News.
I have photos there from all 50 years that I worked with the tablet. I went through all my old negatives and old shots, and I pulled out 1 or 2 from each year, and I put them together in this book. And so it's really a nice, it's a nice collection of photos that says who we were as a diocese over these last 50 years.
And you said that you've probably taken hundreds of thousands of photos. So how did you choose the ones that are in here? How'd you whittle it down?
Well, that's a tough question, but Over the years, I'd been putting certain photos aside. You know, when I got a shot and I particularly liked it, so I'd make an 8x10, I'd frame it, I'd put it on my wall. So I had certain favorites that I kept.
Right, okay.
And I said, well, that became the foundation of it. You know, so then I had to go through all the old negatives so to fill in some of the years where I didn't have anything. And we went through all the negatives and all of the digital photos over the last 20 years, and that's the results.
Okay, so what would you say are, I don't know, your top 3 pictures in this book?
Well, you know, each one is a favorite, but back in the 70s, I took a picture of a little kid drinking water out of a hydrant, and I just thought it said something to me about the poverty of the neighborhood at the time and the refreshment of that water, you know, and the kid. I love that shot. And then I got a picture of Mother Teresa in the 90s, 1992. She came to speak at a convention in the city for the Knights of Columbus. Only time I've ever seen Mother Teresa.
Wow.
But I got a shot of her then there. And then there's another photo that I particularly like because it won an award as the best news photo in the Catholic press. And it's a picture of a Korean woman at a prayer service in St. Sebastian's Woodside. It was a Korean jet that had been shot down, and her brother was killed in that, and they were having a vigil. So it happened to be just a very poignant shot of, you know, the event.
Yeah, so many stories.
Yeah.
So I know the proceeds from this book go to the Tablet, one of the few remaining Catholic newspapers in the country.
Well, first we have to pay for the production of the book.
Of course, but then the other money that comes in from all those books being bought. Why is Catholic journalism so important?
I think Catholic journalism is very important because we've got to get our story out there, you know, and nobody else is going to tell our story. I mean, that's really the main reason that we should have Catholic journalism, Catholic newspapers, Catholic TV, because the story is not told from the point of view of the church. When I read something in other newspapers, secular newspapers, and I'm saying, they've missed the point completely. You know, they don't know what they're talking about, and we're talking from a Catholic frame of view, a Catholic frame of reference, and there's a particular story that we want to get out there, and so I think these things are essential if we want to continue to tell the story of who we are as Catholics.
And now people who buy this book can become part of our mission to keep Catholic journalism alive. Why do you think people should become members of the Tablet?
It's vital these days that there be another way of financing newspapers, because there used to be circulation and advertising. Well, that just doesn't cut it anymore. So, you know, we have to be smart, we have to be creative, we have to find ways to get the funds to keep these newspapers afloat. So this is just another way of financing it, you know, offering these packages to people. In return, they get a lot of stuff, you know, including my book, but they also get tickets to concerts and tickets to baseball games and tickets to lectures. So you become part of the Tablet family.
That was Ed Wilkinson, editor emeritus of the Tablet. More and more dates on Ed's book signing tour are coming up. To find one near you and to keep up to date on all future signings, just go to thetablet.org. And if you can't get to one of those book signings, you can still become a part of the Tablet's membership program and get your hands on Chasing Church News. For just $50, you'll not only get the paper sent straight to your mailbox, you can gift a subscription to a friend, plus get access to the Tablet's online content and a quarterly newsletter, and get a commemorative drawstring bag and pin. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Gift $100 and you'll become a sponsor, getting everything we just mentioned, plus a Tablet baseball cap, and be a part of the recognition listing on the paper's website. Contribute $250 and you become a patron, and among the things added to your list of perks are 4 tickets to Tablet Appreciation Night at the Cyclone Stadium and free VIP access to certain diocesan events. For $500, you become a benefactor of the Tablet. You'll get a signed copy of Ed's book and an invitation to the annual Catholic Communications Mass and Reception. And if you give $1,000, you will become a founder. That'll secure you an invitation to the annual Editors Roundtable Reception. That's good stuff. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.